Fine-tuning the formatting and style as well as how Niu and his mom are portrayed will augment, I phrased him enjoying the lollipop as victory triumphs through taste buds, enjoying its succulent flavor. Alright, so I submitted the first draft of one of my scripts to Short Scripts screenwriting competition. Should you ever do this? No, you should never submit your first draft to a screenwriting competition. But this video is all about what happened. It's about the feedback they gave me and how I go through my filtering feedback process, so stay tuned. So I wanted to share with you guys how I go about my rewriting process as I take feedback so that the script actually gets better and better as opposed to worse and worse. Let's be honest, script feedback can be infuriating, frustrating, and annoying. This is why it's important to know which advice you should be taking and which advice you should be throwing away. The very first thing you want to make sure is that the person reading your screenplay knows what story you are trying to tell. I'll give you an example. I'm just going to dive right into it. So I had two readers take a look at my script. I'm just going to read the first line from both of the readers right quick so you can get an idea. So based off of this, who do you think has a better understanding of what the story is? The film revolves around a boy meeting and developing a crush on a girl at a beach. It's a tale that is charming in its relatability and simplicity, which makes it universal. Now I'm about to read the feedback from the other reader. The film focuses on Niu, an excitable boy who ignores his mother's commands not to track sand into the house, to instead focus on building sandcastles. But he's distracted from even that when a cute girl challenges him to locate a lollipop amidst 3 rotating cups. Who do you think has a better grasp on the story based on how they were able to synthesize the entire story just based off of those 2 sentences alone? Alan, you're being unfair. No, based off of these 2 sentences, it's very clear to me who has a better grasp on the story, because you have one person who's basically reciting to me the events that occurred in my story as if I didn't write it. And you have the other person basically synthesizing all of the data I've given him in the film into something that is pretty succinct. Also, he may have complimented the story. So we're clearly dealing with one person who didn't like the story as much as the other person. So for me, the only thing that I truly care about with respect to making my films is how effective is it? That's it. How effectively are you telling the story? Was I successful in making my audience feel the way I had intended? So what do we look to as our guiding light for feedback? We look to our controlling idea. Don't know what a controlling idea is? You should subscribe because I talk about it all the time on the channel, or watch these videos right here. But very briefly, controlling idea has 2 elements: value and cause. Let me break it down. Now I'm paraphrasing from my boy McKee here, but the more carefully you craft your story around a unique, specific controlling idea, the more influential and powerful your film will become. So in life, we have always been trying to distill meaning from all the crazy stuff that happens in our lives. So we as the audience will subconsciously try to gather meaning from stories as well. The controlling idea tells your audience why life went down the way it went down for that character. It tells your audience how change has occurred from one condition of experience at the beginning of the film to another condition of experience at the end of the film. Now, why is sending out your scripts on your first draft bad? Well, because it's gonna be garbage. But the easy answer is because you haven't quite gotten a hold of what your controlling idea really is on the first draft. Odds are you still have to refine it and polish it, make it more specific, make it more unique, hone it into that experience that character is experiencing so it can be good. So basically, if your feedback that you receive contradicts what your controlling idea in your story is, you know that the person reading your script was not on the right track, that he wasn't aware of what you were trying to say, that he wasn't aware of the controlling idea of your story. So the very first thing you want to do whenever you're receiving feedback about your script is that you really want to get a good picture of what the good things about your screenplay are. So what's good about your script? Both of the writers said that they appreciated how simple the story was. One of the writers referred to the script as charming, relatable, universal, marketable. And that's a pretty good starting spot considering it's just the first draft. So now we're gonna go through the bad stuff that the readers didn't like. Most of these critiques would be solved had the controlling idea been specific and unique to my story, but it's not yet because it's the first draft. So I'm kind of just, you know, not quite sure what the controlling idea is, because you don't want to form the controlling idea before your story's created. You gotta create the story first and let the controlling idea manifest through the story that you create. Fine-tuning the formatting and style as well as how Niu and his mom are portrayed will augment the film. Although it is understandably upsetting that Niu lost track of the girl on page 4, it plays as sudden and uncharacteristic, as he is brought to tears by it on page 5. Expounding on Niu's desire for a connection with someone begins may aid in setting the stage for the scene. Delving deeper into who Niu is will augment the dramatic potential of the kitchen scene. Oftentimes in stories, we want our audience to feel something so bad that we force emotion into our protagonists. And this creates something known as melodrama, something that soap operas do. We all know that individuals in soap operas are only caricatures of people who exist in real life. And when you're trying to create art that's closer to reality, melodrama is not what you want. So what you have to do is front load issues into your characters. And that's what I didn't do. I didn't give my character enough conflict for the character to fall apart on page 5. And that was a big issue that both readers actually said. So if more than one person says the same thing about your script, I'd take a really good look at it. I wouldn't just write it off as, oh, they don't know what they're talking about. Even though I have less respect for the second reader who read my script as opposed to the first one, that is something very clear that my script is lacking, is that we needed to give Niu a lot more conflict so that he can actually have that organic waterfall of emotion. Also, the biggest issue that my reader had with my story is that the message and the themes are difficult to ascertain, and it's because it is vague what Niu has learned as a result of his experience. Right now in my story, it's unclear how the events that occurred caused him to change and what he's actually changed into. There's some very obvious formatting errors that I made in the script that I'm kind of embarrassed to share with you guys. I didn't capitalize a main character's name when they were introduced, when you saw their character for the first time or heard their character for the first time. You gotta capitalize your character's name when you're introducing them. I mean, that's just like... Also, I want to share with you that this particular reader did not like my use of poetic language in the script, because it didn't give the reader a clear idea of what he was seeing in the film. The action descriptions are hindered by poetic and incomplete phrasing, which makes the script difficult to follow. The writer is suggested to write incomplete sentences and to phrase everything simply instead of doing so poetically. For a couple of examples, victory triumphs through taste buds, enjoying its succulent flavor. So this occurs when a lollipop is given to Niu, the main character, and he didn't like that I phrased him enjoying the lollipop as victory triumphs through taste buds, enjoying its succulent flavor. Because I couldn't quite explain what I saw in my head. This is the first draft, right? So I saw hearts up behind him. I saw him smiling ear to ear. I saw, his face glowing up, and in my mind, that took up way too much real estate on the page. So instead of saying, oh, his face is glowing, he's smiling ear to ear, there's behind him hearts popping up out of nowhere, I simply wrote, victory triumphs through taste buds, enjoying its succulent flavor. He didn't like that. One thing the reader also recommended was that we establish what Niu's goal is at the very beginning of the film. Now, Niu's goal at the very beginning of the film is not to get a girl. His goal is to finish that damn sandcastle. And finishing the sandcastle is obviously a metaphorical representation of crossing some milestone in his life that he hasn't done yet. So I've got to make that very clear in the script on the page. No matter what script competition you submit to, you're going to be graded on a list of criteria. It's going to be something along the lines of premise, story, characters, structure, dialogue, and in some competitions, marketability. One reader found the script marketable because they said it was universal, they said that it's simple, it's relatable, everyone's been there before. The other reader, on the other hand, had this to say. In terms of marketability, it does well to ensure that its budget remains low. The most expensive set piece in the script is Niu building his extravagant sandcastle at the end, something that may take time, but is not in itself expensive. The low cost of producing the film may help attract producers and investors looking to fund a short film for a successful festival circuit run. However, at present, the script is hindered in its marketability by a continuously noticeable formatting error in character introductions. It is crucial for the script's marketability that the script's characters be properly introduced and then referred to by the name that they were introduced with throughout the story to minimize the chances of any producers or investors reading the script being confused by improper formatting. Now, essentially, I tried to pull a Cameron here, didn't work out well. This is especially a great weakness for the script, which already regularly switches how a character is referred to with some of its cast, most notably the character introduced as Beach Hat Girl, and then regularly referred to as Lollipop Girl or just Lolly. And so the first thing that you notice about the girl is that she has a beach hat, so she's Beach Hat Girl, and then later she offers a lollipop. And so now her character becomes Lolly. I thought this might be interesting to the reader since the story's so simple, it's short, there's only a few characters, so there's not quite much I thought that the reader would get confused by, but apparently I was wrong. Quick note on the characterization of my main character. He didn't like him. He didn't like New very much. He did not like this kid at all. He said, he is introduced as energetic, impetuous, and disrespectful, with his first scene showing him taking his mother, making him breakfast for granted, and then mocking her when she clearly, not for the first time, tells him not to track sand into the house. This moment doesn't necessarily endear New to the audience, but it does make him engaging with his flaws as a child. The audience is more eager to see how he develops from that state. This successfully creates emotional resonances when he acquiesces to his mother's request following with her encounter with Beach Hat Girl, and she comforts him when she spots his emotional distress. However, it is unclear how this emotional climax carries into the following resolution of New going back to the beach to build an even bigger sandcastle than before. I've got to work on that because you have both readers saying the exact same thing in different words. So I'm definitely going to work on that in the new draft. So one thing this reader, who I didn't like very much, noticed that I was doing in my script was that I was trying to implement visual motifs in my story to try to convey what objects mean to my audience without quite telling them. So I had different objects in the film like Newton's cradle, balls like water and waves and sand. And he said, unfortunately, these visual motifs cluttered my story as opposed to making it simple. At present, the script spreads its focus to 4 visual motifs in its opening scenes: Newton's cradle, the sand, sandcastle, and the waves. It also later adds more with the lollipop and the tic-tac-toe board. The script attaches emotion to the sand, with it being key to New's relationship with his mother and figuring out Beach Hat Girl's shell game. The waves and the sandcastle being the signifiers of New's enjoyment at the beach, and the lollipop tying it to the Beach Hat Girl. So this guy, he's not a moron. He's very smart, okay? Maybe too smart, that guy. However, it fails to attach emotional significance to the Newton's cradle and the tic-tac-toe board, the former being left in New's room without any interaction, and the latter coming out of nowhere to never be seen after its first appearance. So it's clear that I've got some work to do, but I definitely want to share this with you because I know receiving feedback and not winning a festival or a screenplay competition is going to be, you know, not the best news in the world to hear, but that's why receiving feedback from screenwriting competitions is so important, because it at least gives you an idea of what you should get started on, of what you should do. And that's why I always want to leave you guys with this. Never, ever submit your work to a competition without getting something back in return. You always want feedback, especially with very reputable screenwriting competitions such as Austin film festivals, such as Nichols Screenwriting Fellowship. Like those guys, those two in particular, like I've never gotten feedback that was inaccurate, that was just like so off base that I felt like the guys didn't know what they were talking about. But other screenwriting competitions, I have gotten, you know, things that are kind of conflicting advice where literally one reader will contradict what the other reader said, where one person is going to say, oh, this made sense, and the other reader is going to say, oh, that made sense. Or even worse, they will say something that directly contradicts what the controlling idea of that film was, which means that the person reading didn't actually know what the hell my story was about to begin with. So if you enjoyed the video, please give the video a like. If you would like to watch my film, you can catch it on Tubi, you can catch it on Amazon Prime, and loads of other streaming platforms. And it's always a pleasure talking to you guys. Until next time, peace.